I'm here today with Father Philip Larrey, who holds the chair in logic and epistemology at the Pontifical Lateran University. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Michael.
Well, a few weeks ago, we're here to speak about what Father experienced at Davos from January 20th to 24th. It was a ski resort in Switzerland. And for those of you who don't know, there's what's called a World Economic Forum held each year. It was started exactly 50 years ago. This year they celebrated their 50th anniversary. And the general theme is about stakeholders in capitalism, our responsibility as participants in a capitalistic market, and what sort of moral duties do we have for society at large and for the human person in particular. So I just really want to talk to Father Philip about his experience there. For us, he's a unique sort of participant because he's not just there as a philosopher or an ethicist. He's there above all as a priest of the Roman Catholic Church with the same concerns about the moral ends of the human person, just like you and I. And he actually was invited to participate in a debate on artificial intelligence. We'll talk about that a little bit more later in the interview. But I just want to ask him his initial reactions about going there as a priest, philosopher, and also a concerned citizen of the world.
The World Economic Forum is a very unique event where you have a lot of powerful, rich, and influential people. They get together and talk and discuss different issues, and every year, like you said, there's a different theme. Klaus Schwab, who is the founder and the actual president of the World Economic Forum, is convinced that the forum can be used in order to promote good, the good in society, shall we say, and the common good. Now, let's not be naive. You're not going to get a lot of commitment from people that go there to actually do something concrete. Although I've noticed over the past, let's say, 5 or 6 years, things are developing in that sense. People want to take away from Davos a commitment to do something. It's very difficult because people who go there are very diplomatic. They're very shrewd, and like I think Pope Francis mentions in his greeting, sometimes self-interest prevails. Every year he sends a message to the World Economic Forum, which is usually read by Cardinal Peter Turkson, trying to motivate the leaders at the World Economic Forum to think about the good in society, and especially about the common good, so that everybody can benefit from a capitalistic paradigm, which is basically what our global economic system is doing now.
Excellent. But why you as a priest, why are you interested in economics per se? Is it because it has a moral dimension, a teleological dimension? Is there something more to economics per se than economics?
Sure, we're talking about the dignity of the human person. We're talking about 3 days where most of the most important influential people get together. And I think that we should be a part of it. The Catholic Church has something to say to these people. I was invited by the Interfaith Alliance from the Emirates, the United Arab Emirates, and they had a whole pavilion generating debates and discussions about faith issues. So I think this does, and we weren't the only ones. There were 6 or 7 major events that talked about faith from a non-denominational point of view.
So you told me you were invited to speak on artificial intelligence and the fourth industrial revolution. Can you tell us a little bit more specifically what you had to say to participants?
That was the first panel I was on. I was on 2 others also, primarily on the theme of artificial intelligence, because the organizers had read my book, Artificial Humanity, which is an essay on the philosophy of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is now the big topic, especially from companies' point of view, but also countries. And on the panel, on the first panel, in terms of artificial intelligence in the fourth industrial revolution, the background was religious. How can we use artificial intelligence to promote religion on a global basis? Yeah. Yes, let's use AI in order to enhance religion. And this can be done in I think, on two levels. On one level, the way parishes organize their activities, many of them are basing it on artificial intelligence. The way they can use messaging, the way they can find out what the needs of the community are, feedback, interactivity, etc.
Blockchain's a technology.
Blockchain in order to make financial transactions more transparent. That was also brought up in another panel as well. I think also religion has something to say about artificial intelligence as AI starts breaching religious dimensions. For example, some AI engineers are talking about immortality. Can we live long enough to live forever, which is Ray Kurzweil's subtitle of his book. Transhumanism. People are talking about the existence of the soul. And does a human being have a soul? Does an AI have a soul? These are philosophical questions that I think the tradition of the Catholic Church has something to say about.
I just want to ask you a further question in terms of artificial intelligence. From someone like me who studied epistemology, and like you, surely there are questions related to economics and AI in terms of what Hayek called the knowledge problem. I mean, there's a temptation now to say, for example, if we throw everything into a miraculous algorithm, put in all the right data, we'll get all the price ranges and be able to solve everyone's needs at the right price at the right time with the right product. Just sort of like that knowledge problem is solved. Is that true or not?
To a certain extent, it is. To a certain extent, you're absolutely right. But let's not deceive ourselves. AI can be used for good or it can be used for evil. So who is behind the development of the AI? Right now, you have major corporations. Google has one of the best AI projects. IBM Watson project is very good. Facebook has an outstanding AI project, and so does Microsoft and Amazon. So now President Trump just last year instituted the American government's AI initiative. But I don't think they have as much weight as the companies do.
One of the latest polemics I heard about China is that they're now registering transactions of Chinese citizens in terms of what they buy, and they gain or lose social points. So, for example, if they buy, for example, some American import that's not legally registered in China or is discouraged on by the Communist Party, they're being they earn negative points, which may or may not restrict their travel. Was that talked about at Davos?
Actually, I was the Caspian Week hosted a panel on this issue, and there was a Chinese professor from Shanghai who was there, and she said that that was not the case. This came up. One of the people in the audience challenged the Chinese government, especially with facial recognition and the social points, and she says it's not like that. So we need to get the accurate information. Right. The Chinese government does censure the people. We've known that. It's not a secret. And there's no question that Alibaba and Tencent and the WeChat, I think it's called, that is all organized by the Chinese government as well.
Okay, so here's a couple skeptical questions. First, we'll start with the title of the forum itself, which was Stakeholders for a Cohesive and Sustainable World. Anytime I hear the words cohesive and sustainable, I immediately ask myself, what is incohesive in the world and what is unsustainable? Which begs the question how limited our resources are, or we're actually working as a global team and unit amongst the League of Nations, diversifying our economies, collaborating in this great world of specializations like Adam Smith had envisaged. So what was discussed that is actually incohesive and unsustainable?
I think there were basically two things, although you can imagine the amount of discussion was enormous. At every given time, there's probably 10 or 12 different panels going on for 3.5 days. So
Can't go to everything.
you have to pick and choose.
Yeah.
What the impression I got was twofold. Number one, climate change, huge.
Yeah.
Everyone was talking about climate change because the Pope is correct in that Laudato Si that, and this it's not one of his main points, but he does make the point that climate change is going to be the most disruptive for entrepreneurs or companies or business in general. And we're seeing that. I mean, all the companies have insurance against climate change because it just simply is devastating.
Yeah.
The second thing is kindness towards workers. That was also huge. Let's not treat workers as things, but as human beings.
Exactly. As subjects. Excellent. I like that's a great point from John Paul II in his encyclical that we're all subjects and protagonists, not objects of other people's will. Now, turning to the Pope himself, he, as his tradition, he had a letter of greeting read. This year was read by Cardinal Peter Turkson, as usual. And usually in his greeting, he's quite a person of admonition who sees himself more as a prophet. So he's allowed to wave his moral stick a bit, which is good at these meetings. And these people are usually just talking the talk, but not always walking the walk, what they like. So just a couple quotes. He said, Francis wrote, all too often materialistic or utilitarian visions, sometimes hidden, sometimes celebrated, lead to practices and structures that are motivated largely or even solely by self-interest. This typically views others as a means to an end and entails a lack of solidarity and charity, which in turn gives rise to real injustice, whereas a truly integral human development can only flourish when all members of the human family are included in and can contribute to pursuing the common good. And then he concludes, in seeking genuine progress, let us not forget that we must not trample upon the dignity of another person, which is in fact a way of weakening one's own worth. Could you react to that? How did you like his words?
Klaus Schwab is very keen on having the Pope participate in the World Economic Forum. And every year he invites him to come, and the Pope says no, but he sends a letter. Now, the fact that Pope Francis sent a letter and Cardinal Turkson means that he is in favor of the event itself, that he thinks it's worthwhile. It's a forum in which he also has a voice, and like you mentioned, it's the most powerful soft power on the earth, on the globe. He is not simply going to say nice things about what they're doing. He's going to challenge them. He's going to challenge these people who have the power, who have the wealth, in order to make humanity benefit as a whole. Right. So he talks about the common good. He talks about what I'm beginning to look at this as Pope Francis capitalism 2.0. But is there a way that we could make capitalism benefit more people at a greater level? So I think that's what Pope Francis is trying to suggest. Yeah. Was his message accepted and assimilated by everyone? No. There's some people that could care less what Pope Francis says. But again, Klaus Schwab is not one of those. He's very sensitive towards Catholic values, and he is often in the Vatican. He comes to Rome. And I think he's trying to allow the message of the Holy Father to get through to people at an event like Davos.
Yeah, I think one of the things I like about Pope Francis, and that he's been largely critical of these international gatherings and creating sort of type of some supranational cohesion between corporations. You might call it super corporativist, and largely working towards infusing some type of ideological goal or some type of just basically what now we call woke capitalism, some type of kind of trendy moral sensitivity, some issues that are not necessarily the most important thing to humanity, but make them look good on the surface of their business. But underneath, they're actually orientating their corporate lives to something a little more sinister or just a little bit more practical and utilitarian, but not necessarily dignified towards helping the person flourish personally, spiritually, and above all, vocationally at the job. We must not forget one of the greatest gifts we have from Catholic social teaching is that all work is oriented towards a unique calling in service of others and humanity and our nation, but above all to God and what He expects of us. So what do you think of Pope Francis's critiques of these underlying motives, hidden motives for gathering together?
Let's not generalize. There are companies that are now appointing chief ethical officers, which is a new, right? Salesforce has done this. Patagonia has done this. I think Goldman Sachs also is interested in this. Now, some people criticize that as window washing. Oh, they're stating that they're ethically motivated, but they really aren't.
Right, that's the win point.
But I think you have to distinguish. I think that, I met many people at Davos that were sincerely interested in these issues. This is especially around AI, the ethics of AI, the ethics of how a company is run. Larry Fink wrote his letter from BlackRock, which is the largest investing company in the world, saying that they are no longer going to invest in companies which aren't ethically sound. And Larry Fink is not a religious leader. He's a financial leader. So now, so does that mean that everything is perfect and we're all together on a global scale? No, there's still lying and cheating and backbiting and falsity and okay. But I think it is interesting that large companies are beginning to understand the importance of ethics beyond the legal aspects, because they all have legal departments. So what is the law? Are we doing something against the law? The Cambridge Analytics scandal was not necessarily against the law. The U.S. government is now trying to pass laws to protect our privacy, but everybody was upset with Mark Zuckerberg because he sold our information. He apologized. He got hauled down to the Senate and had to publicly say, I'm sorry. But these are ethical breaches before I think they're legal breaches. And it's consoling to see that many companies, and not just one or two, but many companies are going towards an ethical evaluation of what they're doing and their impact on society.
Excellent. So to conclude, having listened to you, perhaps we should have some type of critical eye towards these gatherings, much like Pope Francis reminding us that we're always sinful and that we can potentially gather to collude or promote some type of injustice for the practicality of business. But at the end of the day, we have to recognize that people are becoming more and more concerned about the ethical vision of the human person, his ends, his actual means within the world, and what his ultimate service is towards humanity, his fellow person, and to ultimately to God. So perhaps we can have more priests present next year at Davos. Perhaps, was anyone lined up for confession while you were there? Last thoughts?
Several people stopped me and thanked me for being there. From Unilever, which doesn't have the greatest of reputation, but they actually are doing some amazing things. The International Red Cross was there, and Bulgari was there, and so the vice president of Bulgari came up and said, "I'm a Catholic. I'm so glad to see that you're here." And I think, is this not what we're supposed to do? Yeah. Go to where the power is. This is typically Jesuitical also, St. Ignatius or St. Paul. Talk with these people, dialogue with these people, try to influence to a certain extent as much as we can. Be present. Let the Catholic voice be heard. Exactly. And so the more the merrier.
Excellent. Thank you for your discussion. It's been very enlightening. And we'll see you next time in March with another interview. Thank you.